What is going on, everyone? It is Tyler McKinney back here again, and let's finish up week number 2. We're going to start off with the Sunday afternoon game in Orlando. And listen, I have to give credit where credit is due. And ESPN, you did a fantastic job with this presentation on this game. It felt great. Everything looked clean. The stadium looked great. They had 10,000 fans. There wasn't a lot of them. It was only partially filled. But listen, they were rocking. They were having a good time. The angles were done well. It was an overall good production. I mean, even the weather cooperated in this one. We had just a nice sunny day to really show off those bright colors in those uniforms. It looked clean. It looked pristine. It looked professional. I felt like I was watching a Sunday afternoon NFL game, and that's not a bad thing. That's a good thing, to where when people are flipping through the channels and they land on it, it looks like professional football. That's what they needed to do. And listen, got to give credit where credit is due. And XFL and ESPN, excellent job with that. Now, there's one more thing I do want to talk about before we get into breaking down the game. Okay, so Rain Anthony Texada, when you catch the interception and you know you're going to keep the ball, don't go over and taunt the fans with the ball, and especially leave the little kids alone. Remember, you're in a startup league that is trying to create fans. There's no sense in going over. And listen, I know it's fun to interact with fans, but not with little kids. When you go over to little kids, you encourage them. You know, you tell them that you want them to do well in school. You want them to grow up to be, good boys and good girls. And you want them to look up to you regardless of what team they're rooting for. You don't go and taunt little kids. And then, ESPN and XFL, you gave the kids some towels or whatever. You guys were trying to save a bad situation, and I appreciate that. Hopefully you gave them a little bit more than that, like some t-shirts or something like that, some little footballs or something, because after that, those kids deserved it. Just remember, when you're dealing with little kids, you want to encourage them and not taunt them with that. Continue to have fun on the sidelines. Just be aware of your surroundings. That's all I'm saying in that. Now let's go into this game. And this is another moment where I feel bad for these Guardian fans. I really do, because they had 10,000 fans there ish, and they were rocking that place, and they were really into it for their team, and their team started out well again, but they faltered. As the game went on, it got away from them, and it got so out of hand that by the third quarter, this thing was done. And I'm starting to kind of see a little bit, now it's only been 2 games, but it's a little bit of a pattern here. They start out early and then things fade. And I'm wondering if part of that has to do with that things are pre-planned, so when they get the game started, they've got their set of plays that they're going to run no matter what. And then from there, they go on. And they did have issues with getting the plays in. So it does make sense if that's part of the case. DeAndre Francois, it was planned for him to come into the game. When he came into the game, it was hard to to not only receive the play, but then get everybody set and to do that, because he just didn't have enough time. So that's part of it. Also, too, the offensive line has just got some issues, and they need to figure some of this stuff out. And, like I said, part of it is scheming and O-line. And some of that comes back to coaching. And I'm not trying to harp on him, but Buckley has got to figure out how to coach these guys. And coaching them isn't just yelling at a guy telling you, hey, if you don't do it, I'm going to find somebody else that can. Because what's starting to happen now is you're starting to rotate guys in, and you ain't finding a guy that can. So what's the common denominator? And it's your coaching. And so you've got to figure out a different way, or maybe a way to work with this personnel that's going to make it work. Part of it is just the play calling as the game goes on as well. some of the decisions that are made and some of the things are really putting them in kind of a bad position. And sometimes I do feel bad for that defense, because that defense is really struggling to keep up because the offense isn't able to. And so, I'm just kind of looking at this thing, and I mean, we don't really need to go down through the stats. Neither one of the quarterbacks, did well. It'll be interesting to see if they actually had a line what DeAndre Francois could do, and especially having Taylor back there. I think that both of those guys, if you could have DeAndre Francois running some type of a RPO option type of a thing on top of being able to throw the ball, and have Taylor back there with him, and the dynamic duo, so to say, with that, I think that would be really interesting. But you got to figure out this offensive line. I think that there's a lot of potential. There's some really nice pieces that this team has, and Latimer is really a guy who's really trying at wide receiver, trying to really, he is being a leader on this team, but it's not really coming together and meshing. So they've got to figure out ways to get this team together. I think they've got some really nice pieces. It's just the coaching, and Buckley talked about it, that they're going to go back to the drawing board and try to get something that works. And I hope that they do that, because you can't just keep pounding guys over the head and just expect things to get a different result. You've got to go ahead. You got to change some things up. And I think that this team really, really needs something like that, and needs something fresh to see. Because I can almost imagine that, for about a month and a half now, they've been this is kind of what they've been getting, and it just is not working. So it'll be interesting to see how this progresses with this team. Now, moving on to the Brahmas, and it's just they're turning into kind of a nice team. Now, granted, it's only been 2 games, but they took the loss from last week, which was a big dramatic loss, and they used it to build off of, as opposed to implode. So now, granted, it was against the Guardians, but they beat the Guardians just as bad as what the Houston team did a week ago, and it was in a little bit of a different fashion. This one was really kind of that they just kept chugging, and then all of a sudden the game, by the mid third quarter, it was out of reach for the Guardians, and it was just kind of, all of a sudden you kind of look up and this game's kind of over. It was just a slow build, and I think it has to do with the leaderships there. I really like Hines Ward's approach to coaching, how he does things, how he leads this team, and then it trickles down to his quarterback, who is being a leader. Jack Cohn, he doesn't have the greatest stats. He doesn't have the best arm. He can run, and I think that he's opened up the run game with his ability to run this game. I think that's going to give Balaj and Patrick a better but get them to be able to open up the run game a little bit more. I still think they need to figure out this run game, and I think the run game, if they can figure that out, will open up the pass game a little bit more. But listen, they're taking some chances when they need to, and understanding when, but they're not doing anything to put their team at jeopardy, and they're playing smart football, and it's working. And I think that this is going to be one of those teams that is going to be it's going to be a sneaky one come towards like week 7, week 8. They're going to be up there towards the top and fighting for a playoff contention. And I think a lot of it has to do with just the leadership and the leaders being a leader on this team. Actually, I think that probably the Guardians have some better pieces and maybe even more talent than I think this team does. I just think that the leaders are really leading on this team. And going back to it, they're not making the mistakes that the other team's making. Jack Coney doesn't have a lot of yards, but he's completing a majority of his passes. He's not throwing picks. He had the 1 pick, but that was a tip ball. And they're not really fumbling the ball. You see that happen, and and they're taking the opportunities that the other team is giving them and running with it. And on the defensive side of things, Scott, he's got 3 sacks now. I mean, they're turning into they've got a nice defense. They've got some guys who are playing, they got guys playing hard all throughout, but really this is not a team of these like standout great superstar guys. They're just guys that are coming together, playing as a team, and playing as a team, not necessarily individuals, and really coming and putting things together. The reality is if it weren't for the mishap of the minute and a half that they gave up to the Battlehawks, this would be a 2-0 team, and we would be, they would be sitting at the top with things. And I think that there's only more good to come out of this, especially as Jack Cohn gets more comfortable in this system and they get more comfortable together. This team can really, they're going to be a force to be reckoned with towards the end of the season. So all in all, it was a good game. It was a good experience. Yeah, it was kind of a blowout, but really it kept you interested throughout the whole game, especially with everything that was going on the Guardian side, the confusion, the coaches with back and forth and stuff. I mean, that stuff, the drama of it kind of kept you a little bit in the game. And yeah, so all in all, it was a good experience, and I think it was pleasant, especially for a blowout. And those are my thoughts on that game. And what a way to finish up week 2. This game, it really was fun. It was exciting, and yeah, towards the end of the game, Arlington was never really out of it, but Houston took the game back over, and it was really cool to see this Houston team really come back full circle with this game. So Houston jumps out early. They jump out big. They score really 11 points right off of the bat, and then the turnovers happen. The fumbles happen, and the Renegades, like they did in week 1, week 2, they jumped all over those and took advantage of them. This Renegades team, they really didn't. I mean, when you come down to it, again, they didn't have a huge day with yards. They really only had a total of 125 yards, but yet they were still in this game in the fourth quarter, and a lot of it had to do with those turnovers. I mean, when you've got those turnovers that are, happening literally like every other possession on the punt. I mean, you had 2 punts muffed right there, and they go ahead and take advantage of it and turn those into points. That's what's going to happen. And the crazy thing is that the Roughnecks, even though they dominated that whole first half, found themselves at halftime down by 3 points because of turnovers. And it goes back, that turnover bug. You've got to figure that out, and you've got to fix that. But they overcame it. They went back to their roots. They secured the ball. They kept fighting. They found ways on offense to make things work. They got their stops that they needed on defense. That defense stepped up again. Man, is that a really, really good defense? Looking at this, I mean, it's just okay. So Roughnecks, looking at the defense again, they had 5 sacks. So like right now they're at what, like somewhere 12 or 13 sacks on the season. I mean, that is just crazy. It's nuts. They had another pick, and it was a really, really nice pick, the very first play of the game. They confused the quarterback, and they were able to pick off the ball. That defense is it's gnarly. You feel bad for Will Likely, though. I mean, come on. With the fumbles, oh, man, and to having the big punt return before, and then doing, fumbling one and then fumbling the one right after it. You got to pull a guy. You feel bad, but and then you had Burnett at the end of the half. I mean, you had 3 fumbles that you lost. You just, man, you can't do that. But the thing that I really like here is these guys fought, and they fought hard. I will give Brandon Silvers some credit. Now, he had some balls that probably should have been picked off, but all in all, had 2 touchdown passes, and he was 500 with completions, but zero interceptions, which I think was really good. They keep bringing in McDonald and doing the whole Wildcat thing. It'll be interesting to see if they open anything up with him with the offense. But with the defense humming like they have, they've been able to kind of experiment on offense and really kind of figure out what works with this team. I think that it's really cool. You know, Borgie, oh, wow. That guy, he is special. He really has a knack for seeing the field, finding open spaces, going through and making guys miss, breaking tackles. He's just fun to watch. And Nick Holley, it was kind of cool to see him from the 2020 to now 2023 and making that wonderful catch. That was fantastic for that touchdown. You can't. The stars are really aligning again for this Roughnecks team, and they are really looking like the favorites to be the champions here. Like I said, at halftime it was really iffy because they pretty much dominated the half, but yet they were down by 3 points, and then they just turned it on in that third quarter and really never looked back. And looking at the Renegades here, I don't know. It's really dismal on that offense, and I feel bad for Devion Smith. He's doing everything he can. He can falling forward, carrying the ball the best that he can, and it's not working. And they're trying. Drew Plitt, and I'm saying it right now, Plitt. I don't know if he's the guy. I was kind of worried about it, and now I'm even more worried about it. In this style of offense, it's like in the 2020 version. When Nelson came in, I call him Captain Checkdown. Like everything got checked down, and he never. You've got to push and open up the field, or your offense is just going to be dismal, and that's what they've got here. And yes, this is kind of Hayes' thing, but it's got the Bob Stoops wrinkle in it, and you need to be able to open up that field, and they're just not really able to do that, and they've got the pieces to do it. I think if you bring in a guy like Sloter, and I know that he has the interceptions problem that people are worried about with it. I didn't really think that he was that bad with it there in the USFL. I didn't really get that vibe when he was there. But the guy will sling the ball down the field. I just think that maybe try something else different. And I will say, up until really, later on there in the fourth quarter, they were still in this game. So I know you kind of want to stick with your guy, but here, sooner or later, you can't just have 175 yards and 150 yards, 125 yards. You can't have that total yards a game. You can't. You really need to be up there in that 250 to 300 yards a game in this XFL setting to make an offense work. And that's just the reality of it. I don't think that the defense really is their issue here. I think that their defense has been playing well for them. I really do. Will Hill's been a standout guy. He's done well for him. As I'm not really. I haven't really felt bad about the defense. I think that they were actually giving this Houston team, some fits there. I feel like a lot of it had to do with just the ineptness on offense and Houston's defense really keep getting the ball back to Houston, and Houston being able to then take advantage of that. They only gave up 242 yards total on the day. And what was the time of possession difference here? So yeah, and it's pretty much even for the time of possession, but it seemed like Houston had the ball more. But all in all, I think that this Renegades team, they're I think they have pieces there. They're just missing a few there. And this Houston team, it is really championship or bust. Wade Phillips has this team humming. He's got a really, really good defense, and the offense is fairly decent. I wouldn't say that it's probably the best in the league, but if Silvers can keep managing this game and not throwing interceptions, this team's going to have easily 8 wins on this season. That's just my thoughts there. The Renegades, if they can't figure out some offense, they're going to have struggles winning games. That's just going to be the reality of it. I think that they can get turnovers, and that's really what's kept them in the past 2 games. If they don't get the takeaways, these games are different stories, both the first game and this one. But they're 1-1. They're not out of it yet, and there's time to fix things for them. So it'll be interesting to see as they go. So there you have it. Those are my thoughts for the last 2 games, and I apologize for taking so long time to get this video out and to do it. I had a lot of stuff going on Sunday, and I didn't get back till late, and then I watched the games, and I was just like, I don't have enough energy to get this video out. So I had to wait till after work and get home and get it done, taken care of. So I apologize on that. And also, too, I didn't put the stats up. It was just kind of, it's something I always got to figure out, and it works with my train of thought. But if you like it, I'll put it back for next week. Let me know down in the comment section. And always let me know down in the comments what your thoughts are, and we'll continue the conversation on down there. Listen, guys, I know that you're busy, and I know that I'm busy, so let's get on out of here. You have a good night. Bye.